Further reasons of his absence for the Southampton game are coming to light. And I'm just wondering if we should cut him a bit of slack here. Mikel Arteta, should he have labelled it to the media as a disciplinary breach? Because now we know he was given permission to go abroad on Wednesday morning to collect his sick mother and bring her back to England. So he did that, albeit late back. But should we not provide some context here? Does this really fall within the terms disciplinary breach?
Yes.
Why?
Because he's not flying coach, is he? He's not flying back on a scheduled flight. He's flying back on a private jet, I would imagine, which means he's the captain of his own destiny, and he's played this card before. Now, I know that sounds a bit harsh, but we've heard this backstory of his the family unwellness, and I accept the fact that we're living in a challenged world. But fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And you get into the territory with players like Aubameyang where there's clearly something wrong. Arteta clearly isn't happy. And clearly for him to advance the notion that he feels the necessity to make this a disciplinary issue is based upon probably a catalogue of instances that we're not aware of. A history of this player, which Martin Keown was quite happy to tell us a couple of weeks ago, was his stock in trade about being late whilst he was at Dortmund, and Tommy Tuchel was quite happy to allow that to be the case whilst never signing him at another club that he's been to since, right? And looking at that and saying, look, the reality of it is that Aubameyang is a problem. He's a problem in form terms. Now, of course, you make dispensation for top players. Eric Cantona was allowed latitude but the difference between Eric Cantona and Aubameyang is Cantona performed week in, week out.
Yeah.
This boy hasn't done very much in 16 months. So you put yourself in a territory where Arteta doesn't trust him, isn't comfortable with him, probably doesn't think he should be captain anymore. And this guy seems, despite the backstory that's now coming out, this backstory makes everybody go, oh, right, okay, a little bit of latitude. But this isn't the first time. This is what we're seeing is somebody that's being judged by the body of work that's probably gone before. And in this instance, he might have a little bit of validity. But I bet he don't. If you're going to get a private jet, if you're going to get a private jet and you're going to control when you fly, how you fly, and control the destiny of the travel that you're involved in, then why would you put yourself in a position where you're late back?
So you're not having it under any circumstances? You don't think the picture has been painted wrongly here?
No, I'm sorry. I mean,
he was given permission to go abroad on Wednesday morning to collect his sick mother and bring her back to England. He did that, but he was late back.
Listen, and I would understand that if there were travel arrangements which weren't a certain way. And obviously people can say, well, what do you want? You see his mum on a gurney, then you might have some sympathy. No, I don't believe him. I believe this is a backstory. I believe that Arteta was right to do what he did. I think it takes balls to compromise yourself in the short term, to give yourself a long-term position. Too many football managers will prostitute themselves for star players, excusing their performance because they're good players, and then unwind the fabric of a football club. Arsenal Football Club is bigger than Aubameyang, and the job that Arteta's got to do, which I don't think he'll do in the long game, but in this instance, I think he's absolutely right.
But you are a man who always calls for context. Context. I'm offering you context here.
Yeah, but
his unwell mother is involved.
And I'm giving you an alternate context, which is basically, I'd accept that if the conditions that people were travelling were the average schnook, schlepping it on EasyJet. This is somebody that can pick his mother up, put her on a Global Express and fly her back in a class of travel that gets him back whenever he chooses. Yeah. He's chosen to get back when he wants to.
Nah, but Simon, be honest with me here. When Arteta labelled this a disciplinary breach, what was in your mind? What do you think he'd done?
Probably been late for training.
No, but but why? Because he was mucking about with friends. He was on a night out.
No,
that's what it conjures up.
I don't care if you've got a track record. This is something that's not unique to this boy. He's got it in his locker. He's the captain of the club. He's been alleged to being late repeatedly. Yeah. I would imagine the players are beginning to look at it and go, he's got it from his previous background in Dortmund. This is what he does. And he gets away with it because he scores a lot of goals. And he gets away with it because the culture of a football club allows it. Arsenal are trying to rebuild themselves as a big, grown-up, join-the-dots backwards football club that want to win again. And if they're going to allow their players, they're going to give them goodwill and say, off you go, travel out the country. And by the way, travel out the country in a time when people are sitting there going, hang on a second, maybe travel shouldn't really be allowed. We should perhaps row back a little bit. And the rest of us are walking around society going, perhaps we'll have to contend with the fact that we can't do things. This kid doesn't only have to contend with it, he can get the best form of travel and still he comes back late.
You're not having them
Not
at all, are you?
Not at all.
Even when I provide you with context, you're still not having them?
No, because I think he's earned... Unfortunately, if this was an individual instance, I'd say, you know what, that seems a bit steep. But we know this guy's got
when
form.
I'm offering up here, he's over there collecting his sick mother. You're still not having it.
You're offering up an excuse that somehow dovetails into an explanation.
It's not an excuse, it's context.
No, it's an excuse because he knew his mother was sick when he left. Right, so his mother didn't become sick whilst he was there. So he's flown over there to get... I know neither one of us are doctors, but the bottom line is that Aubameyang has earned the reputation he's got. Before this conversation, before this disciplinary process, if I asked you, what do you think of Aubameyang's discipline, you'd say, well, he's got a record for being late. You'd know it, right? Because we know it.
Right.
So it's not surprising that if he was required to give the benefit of the doubt, he's earned the right to not be given the benefit of the doubt.
I mean, certainly questions are going to be... It had been agreed that he returned later in the evening, that he went over to collect her to be ready to train on Thursday. But it's been reported that he breached the agreement. He flew back Thursday morning and said... So he flew back at the time that he was meant to be pitching up.
Yeah, he knew when he had to fly.
What would you do if you were at the top of Arsenal? Would you have him in and say, last chance? Or would you have him in and say, do you know what? No, you've done it now.
I would say, who's my man? Arteta. Handle it. Yeah. Handle it. You do what you see fit. You need to win on this football pitch. You need to build a culture that has character, backbone, substance, and overcomes adversity. And you do what you think is right.
And if Arteta came back to you and said, even though it involved his sick mother, I'm calling it a disciplinary breach.
Are you fair?
And do you know what? 2 words, get rid. Would you get rid?
Are you fair? Are you being fair, Mikel? Are you using this as an excuse to smack him, or are you being fair? Have you looked at this in its nuance and with the context? Have you been fair and objective? Don't serve out an agenda. Don't try and take the biggest guy in the dressing room and smack him so you can make a point with the rest of the players. Is this equitable? Is this the right way of handling it? Have you looked into it? Has it been done properly? If the answer is yes, and I find out something different, then you and I are going to have a problem. If the answer is yes, you get my backing unequivocally.
Yeah.
And that means the player is a bigger problem for us. Then he's off our balance sheet anyway. We bought him for 58 million quid. We've had him for 4 years. He's been written down. He's on our balance sheet for about 2 million quid. Right. If we sell him for 20 million quid, we make a profit.
Jim White and Simon Jordan, Monday to Thursday morning, 10 till 1. On AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.